各位来宾，接下来呢，我们要为大家带来精彩的主题，让我们以热情的掌声欢迎 Vasu Jakkal 为我们带来的主题是 Ambient and Autonomous Security Building Trust in the Agentic AI Era. Please welcome Corporate Vice President, Microsoft Security, Vasu Jakkal to deliver her keynote speech. Welcome.
Well, good morning and ni hao. It's wonderful to be here with you all at the IT Home CyberSec event. And personally, this is a very meaningful time for me as well because this is my very first time in Taiwan. And it's been a wonderful trip so far. Now, Taiwan stands at the heart of the global technology ecosystem. And that puts you at the center stage of the cybersecurity landscape and the threat landscape. Naturally so. And as we think about cybersecurity, as Danny shared before, today's cybersecurity is not just about protecting systems. It's about building trust. It's about national resilience, as the theme of CyberSec goes. And it is about economic stability. Now let's talk about trust. Because when we think of trust today, in many ways, it's the most important thing and has never been more critical. And at the same time, given the volatility of our world, it's never been more fragile. And naturally so. But before we get into it, let's take a step back and look at what is AI doing for us. Now, I know you all are proficient in AI, in agents. You all have your own agents. These agents are joining our workforce. AI is transforming, and we are on this next phase of transformation that Microsoft calls frontier transformation. We're unlocking new possibilities, finding the cure for the uncurable, solving that one thing we couldn't, producing the world's greatest musician, enabling writers to write a story a day, a book a day, exploring new frontiers in space. AI is unlocking new possibilities for us every single day, changing our world, humans and agents working together, elevating human ambition. As an AI optimist, I am thrilled about the possibilities it's creating for us. But like you all, I'm also a security professional. And it reminds me of the great responsibility that we carry to ensure that AI is a force of good in the decades and generations to come. The stakes are incredibly high today. Trust has never been more important. And rightfully so. As you've heard today, loudly and clearly, the threat landscape is escalating. Look around you. Every day there's a headline. You're seeing a sea of AI-powered attacks. Whether AI is being used to make social engineering more effective, whether it's used to automate large parts of the attack kill chain, whether it's used to generate malware in self-generating loops and rewrite itself, whether it's used to manipulate agents to become double agents or row agents, or just help with great recon. Never mind our favorite deepfake videos. These headlines are all around us. And we are at an inflection of early use of AI-powered attacks. Now, Microsoft processes 100 trillion signals every single day. We track 1,500 unique nation-state and financial crime actors around the globe. And as we look at the front lines of the threat landscape from a unique vantage point, what we are seeing is that attacks are prolific everywhere. every continent, every country, every region. If you look at the list behind me, you'll see that the United States, which is where I live, is the most attacked country in the world. But if you look along that list, you'll see Taiwan is right there at number 10. According to Taiwan's National Security Bureau, there's an average of 2.4 million intrusion attempts per day against your critical infrastructure, which is only getting more critical. Whether it's the very semiconductors or the supply chain that is powering this AI that we're talking about today. And as you look at this chart, one thing is clear. AI is a global challenge. There's no one, no country, no industry, no one, no organization that is immune to it. Cybersecurity is a global challenge and it affects us all. Many decades back, cybersecurity was largely a nation-state activity. IP theft as an example. But today, there's another rising vector, financial crime. Cybercrime cost our world more than $11 trillion last year, and that's rising. Just think about that. If cybercrime was a country, it would be the third largest GDP in the world and the fastest growing GDP. Just think about that. And as we look at these attacks, identity-related attacks continue to rise. Microsoft detects 7,000 password attacks per second every day. That's 600 million attacks a day. And there's another incredibly important threat vector, phishing. And I know that here in Taiwan, this is a huge problem. Phishing as a service has become an incredibly effective attack vector for ransomware. To share an example with you, a threat intelligence team tracked down Storm 1747. This is the group that's behind a platform that you may have heard called Typhoon 2FA. Typhoon 2FA is a ransomware or phishing as a service. And using Typhoon 2FA, they were able to generate tens of millions of phishing emails every month, tens of millions. And through that, they were able to compromise 100,000 organizations across the world. We're proud as Microsoft to have played a role in helping disrupt this. That is one example. Now, what makes it especially dangerous for Taiwan is that phishing as a service and other ransomware services reduce the barrier for entry. You do not need all the sophisticated technology for launching ransomware in Taiwan. Financial crime and ransomware and phishing is industrialized. It's a gig economy with different people specializing in different parts of the skill chain. That makes you more vulnerable to these attacks. This is the new economics of cybercrime. And it's precisely why the depth and the scale of threat intelligence is so very essential in staying ahead. I wanted to give one more example of the sheer scale of this threat, just to put things in perspective. This is Microsoft Threat Intelligence. Every year, we release a report called the Digital Defense Report, where we release all of our insights and learnings from the threat landscape. And what we saw was in November 2025, there were 2.3 billion email-based phishing threats detected just in 1 month. Over a year, there were more than 30 billion phishing-related attacks. That's a huge challenge. And to make it even worse, now with AI, threat actors can get really effective. In fact, using AI to automate phishing and to create more productive and more effective phishing lures, which prey on our human vulnerability, our curiosity, threat actors were able to see a 54% click-through rate compared to just 12% without AI. That's a 450% increase. Think about that and what that means for our future, and what that number is going to look like the next time we talk. So what does this mean for all of us? Clearly, it's challenging. I don't have to tell you that. You're security professionals, you're experts in your domains, you see it. And we can go into a lot of examples. But what we do know, that this is a fundamental defining moment for security. And security as we know it, as you know it, needs to change. Because this age of AI is different than anything else we've seen. Agents bring a new workforce. They're autonomous. AI thinks. And all of the technology paradigms that we have before are being challenged. It also means that we need to do two things. Our protection needs to be at the speed, the scale, and the sophistication of AI. And we need to be comprehensive in how we think about it. Based on our learnings, based on our customers' perspective, based on how we protect Microsoft, we believe that security in this era of AI needs to be ambient and autonomous. Now, both of those are really important words. Ambient means it's infused everywhere. It's built in, not bolted on. And the reason it needs to be ambient is because your AI is ambient. You are using your AI in workflows. You are using AI in deep operational flows. AI is no longer assistive. Yes, of course, we still use AI as assistive. We still use agents which are task-based, but they're increasingly becoming more autonomous. If you just look at the models that are being released by the AI labs, whether it's Claude, Mythos, or it's OpenAI, these models are getting very, very powerful. And if if security doesn't become ambient like the AI it supports, we will not be able to scale. Now, the second part of this is autonomous. Equally important. We cannot defend against AI attacks with human scale. We simply cannot. I talked to you about the scale just a minute back. How do we keep up, especially in a threat landscape which is asymmetric to begin with, where attackers always have had an advantage because all they need to do is find one gap. All you need to do is address every gap. The playing field was not equal. And that's why we have to use AI in security. We have to use agents in security. That's autonomous. What we think about the future of security, it's agentic, where agents are in the workflow of our security teams. Whether it's red team agents or blue team agents, whether it's task-based agent like phishing triage agent, or a data security risk management agent, an identity conditional access agent, or just a customized threat intelligence agent. These agents need to be with us. They need to amplify the superpowers of your team so that you can then have security that is built in and built for autonomous defense. where it becomes a core primitive integrated across your entire agentic stack. And we all need to work together on that. So as we think about this agentic security, many times I get the question, well, where do we start? Because AI, in many ways, is highlighting the hygiene gaps that we've always had in security. For agentic security, first we must start with secure foundations and making this secure by design and default. Now at Microsoft, 2 years back, we launched an initiative called the Secure Future Initiative. It's the largest cybersecurity initiative in the history of our industry, with the equivalent of 35,000 engineers working on it. And a big part of the Secure Future Initiative was to change how we secure in the age of AI. It had 3 pillars, which is what you're seeing here. Secure by default, secure by design, and secure operations, together securing the foundations. Whether it's your data security foundations, with all of that data classification and data labeling, your identities, making sure that you have conditional access, multi-factor authentication, phishing resistance credentials, passkeys, your endpoints, that you're not just thinking about reactive defense, but you're utilizing things like predictive defense, automated disruption, your cloud, where you're thinking about cloud native app protection and cloud security posture management together, hand to hand. And you're securing those platforms, or it's your apps, making sure you understand what your environment is and what is in it. These are the foundations, the hygiene that you need to start with. And if I were to summarize your hygiene, I would say secure your data, secure your identities, and make sure you have the best threat protection 24/7. Now, as you get these secure foundations by design and default, we need to then expand these protections to agents. And this is no small feat. I've been talking to many customers in Taiwan, and the number one question I get, whether it was at RSA, our Global Cybersecurity Conference in San Francisco, or whether it's here, is how do we secure agents? Actually, the first question is, how do we even discover agents? IDC projects that there's going to be 1.3 billion agents that are going to join the workforce by 2028. To give you an idea, if you look at India, the most populous country in the world, the population is 1.4 billion. And that number is just going to go up. In fact, 80% of the Fortune 500, based on our research, are already using agents. That's incredible. But there also is a visibility gap. Because only 29% of the employees and organizations we surveyed said that they have turned to unsanctioned AI agents for work tasks. That's a problem. How do you detect that? And only 47% of the organizations say they actually have the security controls they need. So while it's absolutely incredible to see us use and scale agents and get more effective, and it's all of these cloud agents and endpoint agents now with OpenClaw coming in, the gap for security is widening. And it is super critical that we address these gaps. Because if we don't, these agents are going to be double agents. I'm sure you saw the recent headlines from Meta on rogue agents. That's what we mean by double agents, where they can get manipulated. And the 4 challenges that we see when it comes to agentic AI is agent sprawl. Number 1, how do you even find the agents in your environment? How do you make sure they have an identity? How do you onboard them and offboard them? What permissions do you assign? How do you make sure that they're not overprivileged? How do you make sure that the data that they access is secure? Agent sprawl, number one. Data security and data leakage. What are your agents accessing? How do you make sure that data is not confidential? And if it is confidential, and if that agent does have permission, how do you prevent it from sharing with someone else? What are the policies that you have? External threats. Remember I talked to you about AI-powered attacks. Well, there's all these new attack surfaces that we never had before. Prompts and responses and models and agents themselves, jailbreaks and prompt injections, new terminology. How do you make sure that your agents are protected against these attacks? And then finally, regulations. As global companies, we have to abide by the regulation. They're there for a reason. How do you comply with that? There are 100 plus just AI regulations in the last year. And IDC says that 250 plus regulatory updates every single day. That's a lot. We believe at Microsoft that the first thing we need to do to secure these agents is start with observability. You cannot protect what you cannot see. That's what observability gives you. And by the way, it's not just for security teams. We need a shared control plane for agents across IT, across security, and across developer teams as well who are building these agents. And we need shared controls. We need to know what are the agents in your system in a registry. We need to understand whether these agents are managed or unmanaged. Do they have an identity or not? We need to be able to assign an identity to that. We need to be able to see how these agents are working with each other. We need to make sure that there's threat protection controls to protect these agents. And then we need to make sure that there's incredible foundations of data security. So let's take a deeper look into it. First and foremost, start with identity when it comes to agents. We need to view these agents as active participants, not passive. Sooner than later, your primary interface into your data, your logic, and your apps is likely going to be agents. That's how we are all going to operate to scale. And if we don't, we may be left behind. Well, if that happens, then you need a dynamic identity. This identity needs to have conditional access. The very classical principles of zero trust need to be expanded to agents. And zero trust starts with identity. Manage least privilege access, verify explicitly. Your agents are going to need a dynamic identity. You need to then infuse threat protection, which is not responsive and reactive, but is continuously learning and adapting. Because remember, the agents are continuously learning and adapting. If you have malware tools that continue to self-generate, or you go now with new models, you can go from vulnerability discovery to attack, like the whole cycle has collapsed. You cannot have traditional ways of doing threat protection, which are intermittent. It needs to be continuous. Continuous discovery and risk assessment. Real-time, 24/7 monitoring. And then, of course, using agents for threat detection, for threat hunting, for predictive intelligence. We need to make sure we are doing that. Defending against novel threats is going to be one of the most important things security teams are going to have to do. Because if not, your agents really are going to be risky insiders. And we know that insiders are responsible for 20% plus breaches today without AI. If your agents become these double agents, that's super challenging. And then the third pillar of securing agents, data and data security. What is your data posture? Where is your data? We need to understand that. So many organizations still have big gaps when it comes to data hygiene. Is your data labeled? Is that labeling automated? When your employees, when your team members, or when you create data, and when your agents create data, how do you make sure it has the right sensitivity labeling? And then what are the policies? Can your AI access confidential files or not? What's the role-based permissions and controls that you're going to give them? A classical RBAC. How do you make sure that you're defining these policies? And are those policies automated? We need to think about that. Finally, we've got to have this continuous governance. Danny, the MasterCard's Asia Pacific CISO, left you with governance and compliance as a key theme. I cannot emphasize how important this governance is going to be in the future of agentic security. It needs to be identity first, policy driven, behavior aware, and self-enforcing for us to scale. The last piece I'll come to is we cannot secure agentic AI without using agentic AI in security. We simply cannot scale defense. Let's use these agents. Now, what you're seeing on this slide is what Microsoft introduced. We have more than 100 agents for security that we have. Some of them are our first party that we introduced, and many of them are working with our partners and customers. We have agents for threat briefing and threat detection and threat hunting. We have agents for identity and access management. We have agents for conditional access. And we're working on more agents. So we've got to start using more and more agents so that we can scale our defense. And for these security agents to work effectively in the self-defending loop, we need a platform. Because an agent or AI is only as good as its data. It needs to be able to access data. It needs to have this data lake which brings all of these things. It needs to have graphs that these agents can traverse. Remember, attackers think in graphs. Defenders defend in silos. That has to change. And then we need MCP servers so that these agents can pull in the data that they need. Together, these technologies change the way we do security. From manual, response, and reactive to agentic, continuous, and predictive, and proactive. That self-defending system is the future. And when we do this, perhaps, or actually not perhaps, I believe when we do this, we will change security. And for the first time, defenders will have the advantage. Because using agentic AI for security, we can tilt the balance in favor of defenders everywhere. Now, what we have learned so far, to leave you 3 learnings. Zero trust matters and must be extended to AI. Evaluations and validations are critical. Each organization needs to determine what evaluations you need so you can make rapid progress. These evaluations will help you understand which agents you can give more permissions to and which ones you might want to have more oversight on. And then lastly, security skill sets need to evolve. Every security analyst, security practitioner, identity admin is now going to be a manager of agents. Congratulations. But how do you manage those agents? How do you govern them, audit them? These agents are going to create their own sub-agents. What does that look like? So we're going to have to evolve these security skill sets. And as we approach this journey, we must approach it with humility because there's a lot that we're still learning. As I come to a close, I'm reminded again of how vast the opportunity is for us to create an incredible world. But like all great things, security is a team sport. We, Microsoft, cannot do this alone. We need every single person in our ecosystem, in this room and beyond, to work together because the threat actors are definitely working together. And when I say security is a team sport, I truly mean it. Because what you see on this slide is a reflection of that belief in action. There are organizations across every industry and every region of the world that have chosen to partner with Microsoft on their security journey. We are honored. From global financial institutions like KPMG and ING to iconic brands like Coca-Cola, Levi's, and P&G, to critical public sector organizations like the World Bank and the US Department of Defense, they're partnering with Microsoft. But what makes this moment particularly meaningful is seeing the customers on the slide that we have right here in Taiwan. Inventec, one of Taiwan's most important technology manufacturers, is partnering with us to protect the supply chain that the entire world depends on. And in healthcare, where cybersecurity is literally a matter of life and safety, we are honored to work alongside Changgung Medical Foundation, Taipei Veterans General Hospital, and McKay Memorial Hospital, three of Taiwan's most trusted medical institutions on their security journey. Every one of these partnerships reinforces a fundamental truth. No one can secure the future alone. And Taiwan's role in this global effort is absolutely essential. I love quotes, so I thought I'll leave you with one. Because as we think about the world around us, there's so much going on. There's so much change, at times it feels breathless. But with that pace of innovation today, it's really both impossible and incredible to imagine what the future holds. I believe agentic AI is one of the most consequential technologies of our lifetime. And security is key to ensuring that it is worthy of the trust we aspire to place in it. We in this room and in this community hold this awesome responsibility to help shape that future. And at times, it's going to be a struggle. The most important work often is. But look around. We're not alone. And I know that when we work together, we will create the future we want. Thank you so much. 谢谢.
Thank you, Vasu Jakkal, for your insightful speech. Thank you so much.